Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I've got these fun, cute little garden notes for you today, and we're going to use some dies, we're going to use some washi tape, and of course some stamps from our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com and check out the video description for some money-saving deals. I thought this was just a great way to get a bunch of cards done so that you can send them out for any occasion, because I think any occasion is the best occasion for sending a card. So I want to make a shaped card base, so what I've done is taken a half a sheet of cardstock, fold it in half, and then I'm cutting it with a heart-shaped die, but I'm making sure that a little of the die protrudes over the edge of the fold so that I will get an intact card. I cranked it through 3 times because I am using the ultra heavyweight Recollections cardstock, and you just need that extra push, but there you can see that it is intact. If you're doing this on an electronic cutter, simply weld 2 hearts together and cut them as one piece, and that will work the same. Now I used a couple sheets of 6x6 paper to cut my matting layers, and I also like to cut a bunch of hearts out of the scraps just in case I need them for decorating the inside of the card or for embellishing. I mean, it's pretty much a scrap. You're not going to save that little bit of paper anyway, so you might as well do some extra die cuts while you have your supplies out. If you wanted to change up your colors to reds and pinks, this would be an amazing card design for classroom Valentine's. So if you've got little ones at home or grandkids, it's a nice idea to file away for use in a couple of months. Now I'm cutting out some scalloped hearts in a smaller size out of that same smooth white cardstock I used for the base, and those will be our stamping layers. And here you can see how they all stack up. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the smaller hearts, but I think they'll be used for the inside of the card. I also cut a green pattern paper hearts and layers too, just for a little change. Now I'm going to stamp the sentiments on the inside of each of these hearts, and this is from one of the brand new unmounted sets from Rubber Stamp Tapestry, and I will link that down below. But I love the sayings here. Gnome is where the heart is, friends are flowers in the garden of life, I love you no matter what. They're just so fun, and I think they would be great just to send for any occasion. So I'm starting off with my focal image here, and I noticed these are brand new, so they do have some excess rubber around the edge, so I like to trim that excess off so I don't get that little like kind of curved line sometimes if I rock my stamp by accident. And I'm just using some dye-based ink. I have some Mementos here, but you can use whatever dye-based ink you like. You could even use pigment ink, just be careful that you give it plenty of time to dry. I tend to like the dye-based ink just because it's a little more vibrant on my projects, but you can use whatever you have on hand. And after putting the red gnomes in, I decided to go in with some tan mushrooms and then a dark brown mushroom on each card, and I basically just kind of balance them around the sentiment so that they will enhance. And there I trimmed a little bit extra off of that image too, because I didn't want to get that half circle. If you've got an image like that cluster of 3 mushrooms, that pretty much goes right out to the edge, so you don't really need to trim it. But anytime you got something in the center, it's a good idea to trim off that excess rubber so that you don't get those little half moon stamping if you're, being a little lazy and rocking your stamp. I thought this cute little snail would be nice in a kind of indigo color because I have some washi tape that I want to use. So instead of matching everything to my pattern paper, I actually found some really cute washi tape, and I knew that that would be great to introduce those colors in too, because the imagery you're going to see in a second on my washi tape was just ideal. I decided to go around with that same bamboo shoots ink that I stamped my little leaves in and ink the edges of my scalloped hearts here to bring out the design, because I felt like it just got a little lost with the stamping. So now I'm going in and putting washi tape strips along the matting layer of my card. This washi tape is from AC Moore. It's the Love Nicole collection. I think most of the big box stores have something similar. I think the same companies make washi tapes for all the big box stores, so you should be able to find something fairly easily, but it doesn't have to be gnome themed. You could definitely just use any sort of garden theme. Just keep in mind of all of your embellishments and papers and stuff that you plan on using in your cards, kind of gather that stuff up first so that when you go to do your stamping is going to match. If I was going to do this, say, for Valentine's Day, I would have chose, maybe browns and pinks and reds and less of the kind of primary garden colors. So find your embellishments and papers first, and then choose your stamping ink, because you'll have a much easier time. Now, when I saw these brads that I got a couple of years ago at a stamping show, I thought they would be so perfect for this, and they're just little mushrooms. I thought they were so cute, so I decided I would add those onto my layers as well. Of course, they're going to have to go in a different spot on each card because they're going to have to fit around what I've already stamped. But it gives you a nice bit of shine and another texture on your card that makes it a little more interesting to look at. I also wanted to give the stamped panel a little dimension. That's going to help bring it away from the busy patterns on my paper and washi tape. So I'm using just some foam dimensional tape with the yellow backing that fans of the Frugal Crafter family, they know all about my yellow backed foam squares that never end. And there you can see it kind of lined up on the card base, and it just looks really pretty and dainty with that that scallop edge. I love scallop edges. I think that's something that is just so classic and it just doesn't go out of style. And I think that also gives it that kind of a little bit of a Valentine feeling to it. But I just love that clean white border against all the busy papers. I think it works really well. Now, something I talk about a lot is combining textures, like getting textures that are a little different, like something matte and something shiny and something glittery and something fuzzy. It's nice when you have different textures. So I thought it would be really nice to have a shock of red ribbon in here. I love red against white. I think it's just such a clean look and it works really well for summer. So I was having a hard time tying that thick ribbon. I thought I might go around one of the bumps of the heart in between the center of the fold where there's a gap, but it didn't. It was really lumpy and didn't work. So what I decided to do was wrap a piece of ribbon around my little plastic fork, and I just keep this in my utensil caddy because it's so handy for doing these tiny ribbon. And then I take just a little piece of narrow satin ribbon and tie around right through that center tine. And the reason I'm using the narrow satin ribbon instead of that grosgrain ribbon is that it's so thin. If I tried to go in with that grosgrain, it's just not, the ribbon wouldn't be wide enough to handle a button that big. So using that skinnier satin ribbon, I'm able to tie a really tight knot and get a really compact bow that's going to accent this card and not overwhelm it. Oh, and when I said button, what I'm referring to is the knot in the center of the bow. So if I had tied the grosgrain ribbon to make the button or the knot in the middle of the bow, it would have been just too bulky and messy looking. So sometimes I'll do that with a thin ribbon or I'll do that with string. And I'm just going to really, daintily trim that at an angle so that it's small, and I'll be able to glue it, and I'll be able to tuck the satin ribbon behind my matting panel so that it's glued securely and you can't see it. I don't like to cut that tied ribbon short because I've had it unravel on me before. So what I do is I kind of use a little hot glue to adhere the button, and then I just pull those little ribbons under and kind of shove them in there so they get caught in the foam tape. I know, it's so fancy, isn't it? It's not fancy. It looks a little fancy, but it's not really fancy. And then I'll just add a couple little dabs of glue just to secure that down. I like to use hot glue because it dries instantly. You could use a glue like a Beacon or a Helmar 450 that's thick, but you would want to weight it down or hold it for a few minutes and let it dry. So for the inside of the card, I wanted to do something, even though it's not that much space in there, but still this is just a little howdy-do kind of note thing. I didn't want to get too fancy. Didn't want to have to write a book in there. So I like to do a little decorating so I can keep my notes short and sweet. And I just put a little strip of washi tape from that same Gnome collection and just glued down a couple of those extra die cuts. I mean, I figure that paper is bought and paid for, right? We just cut that out of the scraps. It's free embellishing. You might as well use it. And if you have some left over, you can always keep them for another project because hearts are a pretty classic shape, and you can always use them for something. So I just went ahead and used a different strip of washi tape in each card because I really enjoyed this this set of tapes, and I figured the more I use it, the less guilty I feel about my washi tape collection. So it's nice to give it a little bit of use. And of course, you can decorate your envelopes with this, and you could even make like a little frame around your address on your envelope. Although I will warn you, washi tape does not stick as well as other tapes, so you could end up with it peeling in the mail. So I'm careful. I usually do it just on hand-delivered cards. If you enjoyed this project, please check out our sponsor, pegstamps.com. That's the home of rubber stamp tapestry, where you can find all the stamps I used today. Please give me a thumbs up before you go, and until next time, happy crafting!